Awesome. All right, we're back. Thank you. We are COMP308 in the winter 2017 semester at Centennial, and we are week 5, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished doing some configuration. Aaron was still working on the environment variables for our DB. It's hard.
For Azure.
It's hard for Azure. And let's go back to this for a second, and I want to talk about some other things we need to do configuration-wise, because today is like we have to change some stuff up to get ready for what we need to do. So we've got this all set up and running. We can run locally now because of the well, we run remotely. So I'm going to, if you look up online, I've got 2 sites. Here's my about page, and way over here, I have my about page for Heroku. So those 2 are the ones we're going to be using right now. I have 2 providers that I'm using, and they're using the same database, right? So we're using the same MLab database with both Microsoft Azure and Heroku. Those are the 2 that we're using. Okay, so it's kind of neat that we're doing all that. And we've got these 2 pages side by side. They're exactly the same. Okay. And so far, all we've done, we've only set up 2 routes, right, for everything else. We have to set up the rest of them. I want to do full CRUD today, right? So I want to be able to write to it and everything else. And there's some things we need to get that start that off to get that done. So far, we're having a little list in my about page, right? And I did it this way last time. My application, set it up this way for you. So to get you guys going with your project and about pages and everything else. But now I want to make a real games database. Okay, I want to make a games database. So I want to have a games list. This is what I want. This is what the user story for this semester. My games list, I'll be able to add a game to my games list. I'll be able to delete inline in my games list. I will be able to edit my games list, right? All that stuff is what I want to be able to do with my games list. For now, next week, we'll get you to only log in to have a games list. So you can't access your games list unless you're logged in. We'll do that next week, right? How to do logging in. We're going to use if you want to be preemptive in your learning, we're going to use a module next week called Passport. There's the Mongoose Passport module, NPM, right? That's what we're going to be using next week. So I'm going to be using Passport to connect with Mongoose. The other thing that I might use is Passport. There's another module called Passport-local, which is a NPM module to connect with Mongoose. This is probably a better one to use. I found that Passport local, oops, that's the wrong one. Passport local Mongoose, right, is the one that I want to be using, right, to connect to. If I go Passport local and then NPM, you've got it working? Good. You can share that on developer. So here's Passport local, and Passport local is a local strategy for authentication we're going to be using starting next week. Passport local and Passport itself, right? It's just FYI. That's what we're going to be using. So it's another module we're going to add on top of Mongo and Mongoose to kind of make sure that Mongo itself gives us a secure way of connecting to the database. Mongo's Passport local. By the way, I'm kind of diverging from the book a little bit here. I'll tell you why. I believe the book uses just Passport. And Passport gives us a very lengthy way of connecting to the database. Passport local actually cuts that down a little bit, right? So we'll do that this way. Okay, so that's for next week. But for now, we want to reorganize this site. So I want to make it so that my homepage basically says something like, welcome to my games list. So my site is now going to be my games list. It won't be a portfolio anymore, right? My about page won't be my about page. It'll be a list, games list, right? I won't have a project page anymore because I don't need a project page anymore, or a services page, but I will have a contact page. So these 2 pages are going to be gone. My about page is going to be my game list, right? And my portfolio will say games, my games, or something like that. Okay, let's restructure. I'm doing this because, we want to make it so it's a real kind of more of a realistic thing, right? So in my views, that's the first thing I want to do. I don't need my content from my projects page. So this one here, so I'll get rid of it. So delete this one. Or my services page. I don't care about those. And my contact is okay. Did I get rid of my index again? That's just silly. Did I do that? And can I undo? No, I don't want to. I want to undo. Yeah, Oh, sorry.
Just revert that.
What?
The other symbol.
This?
To the left of the plus.
This?
No. See on the
This?
plus? Yeah.
Right.
And that'll give you everything.
All I want is that one back. That's good. Thank God. Thank you, Aaron. I didn't know that's new. That's something I learned today. Thank you for that. I killed the wrong one. Well, that's good. Look, I don't know everything, right? I mean, look, guys, admitting that you don't know anything everything is a good thing because not everyone knows. So this got to change. It can't be about anymore. I'm going to use my about page. Well, we have some code in here. I'm just going to change it up. So I'm going to kind of rename my about page to game list. Game list EJS. We know what it is, right? And this will be my game. I don't need my about me anymore, so this will be gone. My title, I don't need that. That's going to be my title page, so get rid of these. Right, so it's going to be my games list. And we need to reorganize what we've done, right? Because we made some changes. I need to go to my app.js. Oh, sorry, my route.js, which is in my router, right? Index.js here, my route. And I want to change my about path to games list. Game list. It's going to list my games. It's going to be my game list. It won't be about anymore, so game list, right? This also changed my partials. So if I go to my partials, my header, that's going to be changed. By the way, I did a different partials for this one than I did for you guys. Notice I made my change a little bit better. So every if statement, if there's an if else, there's another way of doing this. I want you guys to think about this. But there's a much better way of doing this than this, where I do if else. Notice my class for home and my about is okay, but I don't care about projects. So projects can go, right? This stuff can go. And I don't care about services. But I do care about wouldn't be about, it'd be game list, right? This would be game list. I should say game list. Okay. So game list will be actually in my my link will say game list, right? And also at the top here where my my portfolios is right here, where it says portfolio, that'll be like my games. Right? Okay. Save, save, save. Save, 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 save. I've saved it a bunch of places. Let me see if this is correct. Okay, we've pushed these changes. Here's my changes. There it is, right? And I'm going to push all the changes that I have to make. There we are. And we're going to say something like updated views. Go push. And let's see if that pushes off to Heroku and to Azure nicely, or if we have an error. Meanwhile, Aaron's been working on tirelessly, I have to say, on getting this stuff done so we can use environment variables. Okay, so we've got a couple of environment variables, and it says it works. Basically, we set up an environment variable up on Heroku, right? And this is the local environment variable that we'll be using, process mvri or config.uri. Now, where would we put this, Aaron? Would we put this inside of our db.js file? Or we would put this inside of our app.js, right? So we're either going to my config URI or my process environment URI, right? But the URI has to be defined online, as you said. So if I go online, and if I go to my Heroku, I'll do Heroku first. Where would I go to define that change? So go to settings, and I'm going to go down, scroll down to. I missed it.
Yeah, reveal config bars. Right.
And if you notice, here's my config vars. I don't have a config variable, so I'm going to call this URI, right? And on the value, that's where my URI is going to be there, right? So what would be there? It'd be inside my configuration. So if I go here, and if I go down to index.js, or my routes are in my db.js, here it is. I can switch this back now, right? So I want to take this URI, but I want to grab all of this stuff from Mongo or MemLab, copy it, go here and paste it. Yeah, that's this one, and I'm going to click add. That's my URI for MLab, right? And Now, what I want to do is go back to local. So there won't be, I'll mark down what it is, right? Like this. So we know what it is. We won't lose it just in case it doesn't work. But locally, we want to put this back, right? So this is going to be in here like this. This is local. So we can test locally. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to always go back and forth to Azure and Heroku. And sometimes it'll break, right? So this is what's happening here. And then what I want to do is at the same time in my app.js, right, where we have let config require config, that's okay, right? We can still put that there. But if you notice what Aaron put in there for his thing, it's mongoose.connect. Mongoose.connect. Instead of using my config URI, that's okay. My config URI is good for local. But we want to switch it up and say process environment. If you're online, we're going to use this one, the one that comes from from Heroku. Otherwise, use the local one. So we're going to take this little line here, and we're going to put this right in here. So process environment is the environment variables that are online. We're just defining one. We just defined one on Heroku. We're going to do the same thing to Azure. Now, Azure is a little bit trickier, but more or less the same, right? So if you go to Azure, here's my Azure. And inside, there's something called app settings, application settings. So if I look through on my Azure configuration, right, and I scroll down, you know, you want to find something that says application settings. And by the way, if you can't find it, you can always just type in application, right? Sometimes it's hard to find. There it is, application settings. I click onto that, it's going to show this screen. And if I scroll down, I have app settings, right, where I have this key and value. And when this would be where I put it in. So again, it would be the same thing, URI here. And then my value would be this. Oh, no, it's not. It would be back to there. This. In here. Okay. Do I put a slot setting in, or I click this on or not?
You're just on the quick thing.
What do you mean? I don't have to do anything else? What's this over here? Should I click that? Delete? No. Save. And now this should save my environment variables. This is my environment variables for Mongo, for my URI, and you can put as many of those as possible. Hey, this is a great way, storing environment variables, great way to hide things like username and passwords, so you don't have to have them inside of your up online. And I mentioned this at the break as well. What you can also do is you can put other things in here that you want to store that's not available on like, for example, your a great place to store things for SendGrid. And people are asking me how to do email, and I recommend you sign up with something called SendGrid. Right? SendGrid is a service that you get for free if you're a student. Right? Actually, it's free in general, but you can try it for free. But if you're a student, and if you get the development pack, actually, I'll put this link in here. It's just so that it reminds everybody under general, right? So this is SendGrid. But if you're a student, remember you get that GitHub developer pack, GitHub student pack, right? Education, github.com, right? And what it does, I kind of mentioned this a couple of times ago. You can get the student pack, and in the student pack, if you sign up, scroll down, you get all these different services. Microsoft Imagine. Oh, yeah. SendGrid. And you get student plan, 15,000 free emails a month, right, from SendGrid. So this is, if you want to get your bonuses for your assignments, I recommend using SendGrid to do that. Making it work, I'm saying, making a whole. So someone signs up for your site and registers. We're going to talk about authentication next week. Someone registers on your site, then you can send up an account with SendGrid, and they'll send a response saying, please verify your email address, right? That kind of stuff. And then you verify your email address by verifying. You give them a link, and then they come back, and then the whole verification process works, because you never want just any random person to register on your site, right? Okay. So that's one. SendGrid. We don't need to do that now, but I was saying during the break that during my, I tried this before, and I showed how to do SendGrid online, and unfortunately SendGrid shut me down because of possible spam. I had a public repo with my SendGrid API key. Bad, right? So please don't do that. They'll shut you down, blacklist you, and you won't be able to use SendGrid again, right? So don't do that. Make sure that it's in a public repository. Sorry, go back. Private repository. I'll be okay. Or my recommendation is put it up on your environment variables. It won't be seen by anybody, right? And it'll be private. The server will protect it, right? All right, now is the time for testing. We just made a change to our site. We took this off, right? And we made it so that it uses environment variables now. So if I go back to my my app.js, make sure that this is all saved. Make sure you save all, right? Because we made a lot of changes. And go back to here, and I notice I changed app.js and db.js. We'll say using environment variables on, we'll say Azure and Heroku for DB connection. And it's a big kind of a long one. They'll cut you off. They'll tell you that you should probably put this in the second line, right? And how do you do that here where it says press enter to commit? Well, you can kind of add a line in here, right? Where you can kind of add, so using environment variables, and then on thing, that second line will be put into a description. It won't, this is the first thing that'll come in. That's what it'll see, right? So you can do that. Click on that, press this, and press push. And now that it does that, it pushes across. And if I go to, first I want to check my GitHub to see if it worked. So refresh. And if I look at my commits, like I said, see the first part came through using environment variables, but they have this little dot, dot, dot. That gives me the rest, right? And you want to keep your little commits as short as possible, right? So that's how we do that. Great, but did it work, right? So I'm using locally, and I can check with Azure. So we're going to check for my deployment settings. So here's my deployment options and see if it actually took that. Yes, it did, right? And that means Heroku obviously did too. Let's refresh my screen and see what I get now. First of all, can I go to about anymore? No, right? It's going to be not found because I killed it, right? So it's going to be like this, and this shouldn't say about. How come it says about? It should say my game list, right? Game list.
It goes to the hero.
It goes right? This is good.
And you got your game.
Well, it works here, but hold on a second. Let's go back to here. Oh, how come it says about? Because I didn't change that. I didn't change it in contact either, right? In my header file, and it actually worked. Look, here's Azure, right? And it's working. My game list is being shown. Meanwhile, let's go back to this, right? Where I had I can go sudo mongod, right? And then locally I can run this and test it, which we're going to do. So let's test it locally. So here's my local test. Sorry, it's not this it. Let's go here. No, that's not it either. Let's go to this here. Sorry, got lots going on. Right click and open it up in terminal really quickly, and I'll run it locally. So I'll say nodemon. Works, right? Working locally and remotely, right? By using my environment variables. Okay, cool. So, so we have a bit of a problem. So I'm going to go make the change. So I'm going to go into my server. Now, someone asked me sometime, why do we put views in the server folder? Why not? Why can't it go in client? Why is my views? Views is like front end client stuff, right? Isn't it? How come it shouldn't go in client?
Parsed by the server.
I can't put it in client. It's being set up by the server. It's a server view, right? If I was going to do Angular, that's where it would go. I might put it in client because Angular is a front end framework. It has nothing to do with the back end necessarily, right? But here this is a view that I'm putting in. So content is okay, but my partials has an issue. So I go to my header again. Notice that my header itself does a couple things, right? Here's my home. Here's my about. That can't be. That can't be about. It's got to say game list. Still going to the right place, but game list has to show. That was the one place I missed it, right? So here's game list, and this is game list here and game list there, and then that way it'll show properly. So now I've made a change, and I updated my header, updated header.djs, and we're going to go clip this, push. That should be pushed up, and let's run it locally now. So we're going to go back to running it locally. And notice that we're running on, I'm already running. I'm going to put it on localhost. So over here, just a test with localhost 3000. Yay, it's running locally. And I can test locally too. So now we're back to where I want it to be. Okay, let's do the rest of this. This is not good. I don't want to set up this in a UL, right? I want to make it so that it is in a some kind of form or table, right? So I want you guys to help me out here to put it in a table, a games list in a table, because we need to structure this for full CRUD. So I'm going to go back to, first of all, let's take a look at some examples online, which is getbootstrap.com. And I want to put a table structure in, and that's CSS, because that's the basic structure. So again, for Bootstrap, for people who don't know how it's organized, CSS is for basic elements that you want to modify. Components is where you want to add other things like button groups and jumbotrons and alerts and all this kind of stuff. But CSS has basics like things like buttons and images and tables, right? So tables is what I want to add in. I want to make it like this. I can use the table structure like this, but I want to still have table headers, a header row. I want to be able to do that, and rows and all that kind of stuff, right? And Bootstrap doesn't always tell you how to do everything, right? I mean, you still need to know how basically to set up a table, right? So let's do that. So here's a list. I'm going to go back to the table for a second. Tables. This is what I want it to look like, and this is the classes, right? So back inside my code, inside my structure, inside my views, I have my content in my game list, right? I don't want to make a UL anymore. I want to still use this idea, right? But I want to structure it differently. So it needs to become in the form of a table. Help me out for those people who remember. Here's my table. Inside my table, I want to have what? Different rows, right? Which are like TRs, right? So here's a TR, right? But and THs, right? What are THs? So I need that, right? And my TH, inside that, I'm going to have, what we call a couple of TDs, right? So how many TDs am I going to have? The name of my game, the cost, and the rating. Those are the three things that are part of my games, right? So TD times 3 is what I want. And if I was to go through, this is what it would look like. Table header with 3 things, right? But actually what I really want is more, because it's going to be my name of my game, cost, rating, edit, and delete. I need 2 more, right? So I need to put those out there too. Right, so this is what it's going to look like now, right? And underneath my TH, right? So I'm going to undo. Underneath my TH, this is and inside my table header, this is how you can structure it, right? Where I have 5 TDs. I also want to have 1 TR, right? So next to that, I want to have 1 TR, so 1 row. That's going to be my example, my template row. This is where my row is going to repeat over and over again because of EJS, right? And my template row is going to have what? Some kind of anchor tag, right? So TD with an anchor tag inside of it. So TD, well, data. TD is data, right? Row data or column is what it is, right? So a TD with some kind of anchor tag inside, right? And the anchor tag is going to be a link, right, to take me to my stuff. For now, though, we don't. If we even left the anchor tag alone, we could totally do that. Just make it some kind of information, right? So if I was to do that, it would look like this. Let's structure the table, right? Now remember, if I go back to Bootstrap, we can add in our table structure. So table classes table. I want to add that in, right? So copy paste. And I don't want to just have a regular table. I want to have a striped table. So let's go back and forth here. So striped tables have table striped. So table striped. I want to have a striped table. So that's the next one. Table striped, right? Table dash hover, right? Table dash bordered, right? These are all things I want on my table. My table is going to look and feel like a striped table that you can hover over, right? With has borders. And my table headers, these are my TDs, right? Should this be the other way around? Should this be did I do it right? TDs and TH, right?
No, yeah, TH should be TR, and TD should be TH.
So this should be TR, and these should be THs, right? So how do I do that again? So I want H, I can fix this really quickly. So TH is times 5, right? That's that, right? That fixes that up really quickly. And my table heading is going to be something like name, right? I'll say cost, rating, right? Yeah, makes sense. In my TR, I have a TD, my actual thing. I need a bunch of TDs like this, right? So TD has to be 5 of them, right? Again, so TD times 5. Inside my TD, I'm going to have the first one is going to be the cost. So I want to get, so the name is going to be this one, games name, right? For each of my games, right? And then I'm going to do, and I don't know how, I'm going to have to put this, my for loop, I haven't done the for loop yet. I'm just putting my stuff in here. So games name, games cost, this is what it's going to be looking like, right? And games rating, right? That's what it's going to have show right now. Here's my rating, right? And then this one is going to be some kind of edit button, and this one is going to be some kind of delete button, right? So this one will be an edit button, but I'm going to make this an input, right? We're going to talk about this in a second. This will be an edit button and a delete button. So for now, I'm just going to put edit. I'm going to fix that in a second. And this one will be a delete. These are just placeholders for now, right? I want to definitely put this for loop around this one. I'm going to cut this out. And it's got to be inside this whole row has to be something that I repeat over and over again, right? So I'm going to put in above here, right? One of these, right? And I'm going to skip over here like this. And notice that I have to put these things in here, right? So I want to kind of copy this in here, here, and here. And the endings here, here, and here. This we understand how we inject stuff, right? Now I don't need this, but I do need this bottom part. Oops. This bottom part here, I need this. So I'll cut this out. And underneath this, inside. So I'm basically what I've done is I've created a code block. Here's my code block here. So I'm going to make a repeating row. This is my row template. That's what this is. And I'll put that in there. I'll say, just so I can put in some thing. This is my row template. That's what this is, right? Right. Now, by the way, I don't know because I'm inside of a code block if this is going to make a mess. But we'll soon see, right? This is my row template, and this is what it looks like. My row is going to keep repeating over and over again. Name, cost, and rating. First of all, let's make sure that this matches with what we have in our model, right? Here's my game.js model. Name, rating, and cost. Does it really matter the order? No. Doesn't matter, right? But this is definitely what we're doing here. That's why I'm showing those things off, right? Inside of my, my games list, right? This is what it's going to look like. So I'm reformatting my games list, and if it works well, we'll keep coming back here and modifying it, right? I don't need this anymore, and I don't need this anymore. My UL is going to go away. I don't need a list. I'm making it a table, right? Okay. Let's see what it looks like now. So if I was to run this thing, so I go back to my the web, and I go back to here, and I refresh, and see it like this. Yeah, it looks nice, right? Fallout 4, the name of the game, whatever it's going to be locally. It's going to be different remotely, by the way. Right? And then I'm going to have my edit button and my delete button, right? And it kind of looks like a little table, right? I'm starting off. And I'm also going to have some kind of add button. I'm missing that, right? So first of all, you can add a button and add a new button. I could. But I recommend inputs, because inputs will allow us more control when it comes to the URL. I have an href. I don't have an href for the button typically, right? And I want to have hrefs so that I can go to some kind of link that I can modify with my code, right? So going back, I want to put buttons in my use Bootstrap buttons. Here's buttons, right? But buttons show three different options here. A link, that's a button. An input, that's a button. Inputs are used for if you're going to make a form. Buttons, you can also use a button, but links are really flexible for us, because links allow us to make it look like a button, but it's still a link. It's structured or formatted to look like a button, and that's what I recommend. Copy. We'll talk about why. Now these are the games themselves, but my edit is where my first button is going to go. right? Which is going to say edit. And my delete is where my second button is going to go, and that's going to be showing delete, right? Now button default and button means that gray button, right? Edit, I want to make it so it's the primary button, so it looks like nice. It looks like it's a blue button. And delete, if you have on deleting, it should really be the danger button, right? Danger, right? Because if I don't do the danger button, it's bad, right? So if I go back to the web and I go back to here, and if I refresh now, I see buttons, right? We're starting to build up what our page is going to look like. Right now, they don't do anything, right? So if I go here like this, these buttons don't do a darn thing. Notice that I didn't put a header of edit and delete because it doesn't make any sense. I just left them as empty headers, right? So that gives space. All it's like empty column headings. That's all they are, right? To give rise to these things. Right? Now, these are nice buttons, but they're kind of ugly. And I want to use Font Awesome to give me some buttons, right? So my edit button is going to be the pencil, right? And my delete is going to be my trash, right? So if you remember how that is, it's structured like this. So it's an I tag, and I want to give a space between my text and the I tag. So I'll put the I tag in here too. Oh yeah. Here's my I tag and the text, right? Okay. Want to come in? Okay, I'll be here. So here's my I tag and the edit. Here's my edit and delete, right? And then what we have is a class where we have FA, and then so Font Awesome, FA pencil, right? And then I believe it's .o for outlines, right? And that's the class, right? And then the same thing goes with my delete. Class was equal to FA, and then FA.trash, the little trash button, and then outlines for the trash. And if I've done things correctly, if I can remember things right, and I don't always do, right? Then when we go back here and refresh, right, we should have, well, I got one right, right? Let's see what the other one is. So Font Awesome. If I go to fontawesome.io, here's my icons, and I want to search for edit of the pencil. Oh, pencil square, pencil square.o. So that's what I missed. Pencil -square.o. If I go back to here and refresh, I have my look and feel. What happened? Pencil -square. Did I not do it right? Pencil square O, right? FA pencil square O. I did that. FA pencil -square.o. We're just going to copy this. So maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I put in the wrong. Huh? Doesn't. But you know what? Never can tell. No. Save. It's close. And if I go here to this and refresh, we should see that change. Yep. All right, so it looks like nice. Now we got edit and delete. Now there's a problem. What problem do you see with this table? What do I need to do here? How do I center those buttons? For the is it a CSS class that's part of Bootstrap? Right. Show me where it is. Would it be under the TD? Remember, if I go back to it's table stuff. Oh, if I go back to Bootstrap, right? Sorry about that. And if I go back to CSS, and if I look at the table, here's a table, right? So here's my table structure for rows and everything else. I'm looking at for classes, table hover, table condensed, if I really want to. Here's different kind of contextual classes for active, success, and so on. Oh man, where is that stuff? Here's classes for my TRs, so I can make each row a different color if I want to, right? And my TDs, but, you know, and then if I want to make them responsive, this is really cool. Making responsive tables are cool because it kind of adjusts. And you put that around a div class that goes around my table itself. That might be something we want to explore later, but there's some issues with this. Be careful. But that's it. It doesn't tell me anything about how to do stuff with buttons. How do I center stuff? So if you don't know how, I want to Bootstrap center, and I want to not center the center text, right? Horizontally or vertically? Horizontally, right? table. Properly. In a table, right? And this is from 2012. So we have to really be careful what this says. But if I look through here, some of this is exactly the same. So he's got some stuff. He wants the horizontal text align center, right? So if I go to my TD, let's try this out for these two first. So class is equal to text line. Is this text line center? Text align. Wait. Text center, right? Not wrong. Text center. So I can grab this stuff here and I copy and paste it. And if it worked, we'll take a look at that. Oh, this I already have a class, but here it's in the TD, right? So I'll save it and I'll go back online to this one and refresh it. And if it's good, that's nicely centered. And I probably want to center these ones. And I probably want to make sure, look how these ones are up here in the top left, but they're not kind of centered inside this row. These are all, because these are so big, right? It pushes these two to look like this, right? Just saying, right? So you probably want to text center these ones as well. So I'm going to try and do the same thing. Now you may disagree. You might say that, I don't know if I would do it this way, Tom. But, and you might want to use your own custom classes, right? But when the effect is this, which is what I want. Now, but then I might as well do the headings as well, because that makes sense, right? Because I want to center all my headings as well, so that all that is centered, right? So refresh, right? Now it looks a little nicer. Now these are all cosmetic changes. And someone said to me earlier, well, I'm not really great at design, right? But I want you to think about this. I'm not a great designer. All I know is I look at this and I say, it's got to be proportional. It's got to be centered. If it's off, I mean, it's easy to detect. There's another problem too. How about vertical? It's off a little bit. I want to make it vertical set up as well. Is there another command that I could use? Vertical align, right? But there must be something with Bootstrap. So take a look at it. Maybe you can find it and share that. For now, we're good, right? We want to put these things up. So what I want to do is the following. When I click my edit button, I want to take me to an edit menu, right? But I also want to get there. I want to kind of know what my ID is. I want to know what my ID is for this thing, and I want to go to that link. How do I do that, right? Well, this sets up the routing for my stuff, for my game list and everything else, right? And this is what we're going to spend the last part of our class doing, routing, and for this deletion and everything else. So we've got a nice setup, and I'm going to go to my routes, and I've got this index.AJS route. Wait, I've got my top listing for my game list and my game. Should I put my routing in here, you think? This sends information to my game. It sends my whole game's things down there, right? Should I put my routing here, or do you recommend making a whole new set of routes for what I want to do with my other stuff that I'm doing, right? Now, I'm putting this out there to you guys because sometimes what happens is with from a routing perspective, we want to split off our routes so that, our games are in one route, right? Separate from everything else. And again, I'm just putting it out there because it may not be the way you want to do it, but when I want to add games or delete games or edit games or anything like that, and I put that in my index, this route here, my main routing, which is the main one, should be my routing for my application. It should have my links on the top, my top level links, right? And I need to make another one, right, for lower level links inside of my application, right? So I need to make another one. Now we need to make a friendly name for this. So I'm going to right click and put a new file in place, right? Now I want you to think about this. What should it be called? Games list comes to mind, right? Games list. And we could just call it games. Remember, it's inside of routes. It doesn't matter what we call it. But games or games list or something like that is something we want to modify. So not just like models has games, routes also has games. Let's do that. New file, we'll say games.js. There's my games.js, right? And notice here where we had our games.js, we have an edit page, and we had an update and delete, right? Here's all the stuff that we're going to add in. What we want to do here is I want to kind of start typing in some of these routes, but I also want to connect my games list, right, somehow to my regular routes, right? So my regular routes themselves, right, should have my top level route, right? It should have things like my about page, my contact page, and everything else, which we've accomplished, right? All those things are good. If I want to do my processing of my contact page, that route will also be inside of my index.js, this one, because my processing for anything, my getting or posting from my regular top level routes should be here. But this should be all for my other routes, like my adding, my deleting, all that stuff should be here, right? So that means that I have to include those things inside of inside my app.js. So if I go to my app.js, right? Here's my app.js. Notice that I have a route down here for my index, right? Well, I want to do another route. I got to be careful what I call it. Games, which is equal to require, right? I don't have this yet, but I want to require my route, right? So it's going to be the same thing. So it's going to be still in the same place. So routes, then games. Notice I don't have to put the JS because that's just not required when you do a require. That's the one thing I need to do. So require routes, right? Where that means I need module exports, just like I did here. So if I was going to model it after what I've done, what I've done in my router, which is this, notice that I have at the top my requires, express, and my router. I need to still put those in place. So this I definitely need. So I'm going to copy these two things in my games.js. Because I need those two things. I still need to do express and routing, right? Also, I'm probably going to need access to my Mongoose, right, connection, and my models, this stuff here, because my games and all that stuff. So I need all this. This is all in here. Okay, so my require, my express, my Mongo, all that stuff's got to be in here, right? And then in my index, if I go further down, you can see my router, my get, all this stuff. At the bottom, I have my module exports router. Well, yeah, it's kind of the same thing that I want to do here. I called it router here because this is routing my stuff. Locally to my index, it's called router, right? But what I'm exporting is actually my entire index. This represents all my routes. Anytime I do a get, my router.get, this router holds the property for this route, right? So actually when I'm exporting my router, I'm exporting all my routes. I could have called this let routes be express router. These are all my routes, or routes, whatever you want to call them. Routes, roots, tomato, tomato, right? So I want to do that too. So I'm going to go all the way down and grab this routes thing. I'm just setting it up and setting up in my game.js in the bottom. There it is. So module exports router. Okay. Make sense? Okay, so we got my routes and my router. Now I've got to get the routes happening, right? So I need a couple of routes that make sense for me. So again, let's think about the things I want to do. I want to do an edit, right? But before I get there, let me go back to my app.js. My app.js does a couple things, right? I have my routes and my games and my regular routes, right? And if I scroll down here, when I use /, I use index, right? It means anytime I remember I'm talking about app use and how this is my wildcard, right? Well, I want to kind of do something like that, but only for my routes. So remember, I want to set up my routing. So if I'm going to my wildcard route, I go there. But if I want to go with, if I look for anything to do with users or games, my games route, right? I want to hit the other one, right? So I want to do something like this. I want to say app.use, right? And I want to say when I look for games, right? I want to look at my games. Oops. I want to look for my games object. I want to use my games object when there's any kind of thing to do with games. When I'm looking at /, is just my wildcard for my top level links. But anything to do with my games, I want to put, it's going to start with games / and then everything else. Let's take a 5-minute break. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of a survey, right? And we'll be able to finish off this CRUD stuff later on. So I'm going to take a short break, let's say 15 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll finish off the CRUD. All right?